She didn't ask for money. She didn't complain. She only asked if she could take leftover food home. So the CEO followed her. And what he saw that night changed everything. Michael Reynolds had approved thousands of employee requests in his career. Vacation days, shift swaps, payroll corrections, health insurance clarifications. Most of them blurred together. But that night, long after the office lights had dimmed and the city outside had grown quiet, one request refused to fade from his mind. Would it be possible to take home any leftover meals after my shift? That was it. No explanation, no justification, no complaint, just a simple sentence. The request came from Sophia Carter, a line cook who had worked at his flagship restaurant for just over a year. Michael frowned. Employees took leftovers all the time, usually unofficially. A plate here, a wrapped sandwich there. They didn't submit formal written requests. Why would someone feel the need to ask like this? He pulled up her employee file. Age, 24. Position, line cook. Attendance, perfect disciplinary notes. None emergency contacts. None listed. That last part made him pause. Everyone listed someone. A parent, a spouse, a sibling. Sophia hadn't. Michael leaned back in his chair, staring at the screen. Maybe she was just frugal. Maybe she was saving money. Maybe it meant nothing. But something in the wording, polite, restrained, almost apologetic, told him this wasn't about convenience. It felt like need. He checked the clock. 10:47 p.m. Sophia's shift ended at 11, Guan. Michael shut his laptop. Without fully understanding why, he grabbed his coat. Tonight, he decided, he was going to find out. From the back of the restaurant, Michael watched through the glass doors as Sophia wiped down the final stainless steel counter. Her movements were fast, but careful, the rhythm of someone used to exhaustion. A manager handed her a small brown paper bag. Sophia accepted it with a nod. No smile, as if even gratitude felt like too much to show. She untied her apron, folded it neatly, slung a worn backpack over her shoulder, and stepped into the night. Michael waited. He saw her stop beneath a flickering streetlight, arms crossed against the cold. No car. Minutes passed. Finally, a bus groaned to a halt, and she climbed aboard. Michael hesitated, then followed in his car, keeping several lengths behind. The bus ride stretched longer than he expected. Downtown lights faded. Restaurants disappeared. Shiny storefronts turned into boarded windows and cracked sidewalks. At every stop, he thought she might get off. She didn't. Nearly an hour later, she finally pulled the cord. Michael parked down the street as Sophia stepped off and walked quickly, never looking back. She turned a corner. Then Michael saw it. Not an apartment, not a house, a trailer, old, weather-stained, barely lit. Sophia unlocked the door and stepped inside. A dim light flickered on. Michael felt his stomach drop. Michael stayed where he was, watching through the thin curtain glow. The interior was small, painfully so. Stained walls, worn carpet, no decorations, just survival. Then, movement. 3 small figures rushed toward Sophia. Children. They wrapped their arms around her waist, their voices animated, hungry, not just for food, but for her. Sophia laughed softly, exhaustion briefly replaced by warmth. Then an older woman appeared, frailer, slower. Sophia guided her gently to a chair, her hand resting protectively on the woman's shoulder. Michael's throat tightened. This wasn't frugality. This was responsibility. Sophia unpacked the paper bag. She divided the food carefully. 4 plates, not 5. The children ate quickly, like kids who understood food wasn't guaranteed. The older woman ate slowly, hands trembling. Sophia sat with them. But she didn't eat. She cut her food into pieces, moved it around her plate, smiled, nodded, pretended. Michael felt sick. Then the oldest child, maybe 10, looked up. "Did you eat at work today?" Sophia hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. "Yes," she lied gently. "I did." The boy studied her, unconvinced, then said nothing. Michael leaned back in his seat, chest tight. She wasn't skipping one meal. This was a pattern. Later, as the children settled down, Michael noticed something else. No bedrooms, just one thin mattress on the floor near the kitchen, Sophia's. After 16-hour shifts, after feeding everyone else, Michael closed his eyes. He had seen enough, and what he didn't know yet was this was only the beginning. Sophia didn't sleep much that night, even after the trailer went quiet, after the children's soft breathing filled the cramped space and her grandmother drifted into uneasy rest. Sophia lay awake on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling where a small crack ran like a fault line. Her body ached in places she no longer paid attention to. The burns on her forearms from the grill, the dull throb in her feet, the tightness in her lower back. It had all become background noise to survival. What weighed heavier was the fear. Fear that tomorrow the food request would be denied. Fear that management would think she was abusing the system. Fear that if she spoke up any louder, she might lose the only income holding her family together. She had learned long ago that silence was safer than honesty. Ever since her mother passed, everything had fallen onto her shoulders. College brochures still sat folded in the bottom of her backpack. Dreams postponed, not abandoned, but buried under responsibility. Every shift she worked wasn't just for herself. It was for 3 growing children and one fragile woman who had once held the family together but now depended on Sophia for everything. Sophia rolled onto her side and pulled the blanket tighter. She told herself what she always did. Just one more month. Just get through this week. She didn't know that across the city, a man who had never worried about rent or groceries hadn't slept either. Michael Reynolds arrived at the office before sunrise. The building was still dark, the polished floors reflecting only his silhouette as he walked past framed mission statements and company awards. Words like integrity, family, and opportunity stared back at him from the walls, and for the first time, they felt hollow. He sat at his desk and opened the employee database again. This time, he didn't skim. He dug. He pulled wage reports, shift logs, overtime patterns, emergency contact lists. What he found disturbed him deeply. Sophia wasn't an exception. She was a warning sign. Too many employees were clocking excessive hours. Too many lived paycheck to paycheck despite full-time work. Too many had no emergency contacts listed at all. People with no safety net. Michael rubbed his temples. For years, he had trusted systems, spreadsheets, and summaries. He believed numbers told the truth. But numbers didn't show hunger. They didn't show mattresses on the floor. They didn't show someone pretending to eat so children wouldn't worry. At 7 a.m., he called an emergency executive meeting. No assistance, no delays. This company, he said, standing at the head of the table, has failed the people who keep it running. The room went silent. He laid out everything. Wage gaps, food waste, the lack of real employee support. There were uncomfortable shifts in seats, nervous glances. Some executives tried to defend the policies. Michael stopped them. This isn't about policy, he said. It's about people. By 10 a.m., changes were in motion. By noon, they were irreversible. Sophia arrived at work expecting nothing different. Same heat, same orders, same long hours. She had barely tied her apron when her manager asked her to step into the office. Her stomach dropped. Fear tightened her chest. This is it, she thought. I asked for too much, but instead of a warning, she was handed an envelope. Inside was a letter. Not a termination notice. A promotion, a permanent raise, back pay, and a formal invitation to the company's new employee assistance program, covering housing support, food security, and education grants. Sophia read it 3 times, her hands shaking. I don't understand, she whispered. The manager's voice softened. You were seen. For the first time in years, Sophia broke down, not from exhaustion, not from hunger, but from relief. A deep, body-shaking release of everything she had carried alone. That night, she brought home more than leftovers. She brought home hope. Within weeks, her family moved into a small apartment. Nothing fancy, but it had walls that didn't shake in the wind, doors that locked properly, and beds for everyone. Sophia slept on a real mattress for the first time in years, and she cried again. Michael didn't announce what he'd done publicly. He didn't need applause. But something changed within the company. Turnover dropped, productivity rose, loyalty deepened. Employees who had once been invisible began to speak, to plan, to dream again. And Michael started doing something he had never done before. He listened, he walked the floors, he learned names, he asked questions, and waited for honest answers. One afternoon, he saw Sophia mentoring a new hire, patiently explaining procedures with confidence he hadn't seen before. She stood taller now, stronger. Not because someone saved her, but because someone finally stopped ignoring her. Michael realized something then. Leadership wasn't about authority. It was about responsibility. Sophia eventually enrolled in night classes, not because she had to, but because she finally could. Her journey wasn't over. It never is. But it had direction now, stability, dignity. And Michael? He never forgot that night. The flickering light, the children eating quietly, the untouched plate. It became his compass. Moral of the story. Some of the hardest working people you'll ever meet are fighting battles you'll never see, Not everyone who smiles is okay. Not everyone who stays silent is fine. Power isn't proven by how much you earn or control. It's proven by what you do when you see someone struggling. If you have the ability to help, even a little, do it. Because sometimes one act of awareness can change generations. If this story moved you, subscribe to Momentum Stories. Because the world doesn't change through loud voices alone. It changes when truth is seen, compassion is chosen, and silent struggles are finally heard. Your next story might be closer than you think.